Hello, welcome back to our Python course. I want to do a little exercise with you that I found very instructive. We did this in class and it was a lot of fun. And the idea is to find the initials of a name that the user has entered. Here's a notebook that explains how to do that. So if I enter my name, Andreas Matthias, I want the output to be AM. If I enter Billy, the output should be just B. If I enter John F. Kennedy, the output should be JFK. So it should pick the initials, put them into one string, and output that. And of course, the first thing we need to do is to enter a name, and this is here. Let's run it. Enter a name, and then I say Andy or whatever, and that's it. Nothing else happens. Now I have my name in the variable name. Now the first of the initials is easy if you think about it. Whatever the name is, the first letter of the whole string will also be the first initial. So if I just say Billy, the first letter is B. If I say John F. Kennedy, the first letter is the J. So the first letter of the whole string must also be the first letter of the first name. So it is our first initial. And this makes it easy for us to pick this out, and at the same time we can initialize our initials variable that will keep the result with that first letter. And this is what I do next. I say initials is name 0. And 0, if you remember, is the index for the first element in any list, and also in this case, the first letter in a string. Initials is name 0. Of course, now it does not print anything, but there is no problem here. The initials are the name 0. I can print it if I want. Let's print initials and see what happens. It says A. Okay, and now we need to loop over the letters in the name because we don't want to be stuck only with the first letter. We want to have all the letters. So we use a for loop. And you remember that if I use a for loop with a list, it will go through every element in the list. And if my list is a string, it will interpret the string as a list of characters. And this is exactly what we want. So it will go through the list, through the string in this case, character by character. So here we have that. For letter in name, print letter. So this is just to test whether it works. Let's execute it, and you see Andy, it gives me A, N, D, and Y. Right? So this works perfectly. It does exactly what we want. It goes through the string letter by letter. Now the next question is, how do I find the spaces in this string? Well, I have the letters one by one, and if the letter is a space, then I have found a space. And this is what we do here. For letter in name, we go through name letter by letter, print the letter just to make sure we see it, and if letter is space, then we print space found. Let's try it. But first I have to give another name, so let's go back because my name here does not have any spaces. So let's take John F. Kennedy. Right, so I have another name now, John F. Kennedy, and now I go through this, and you see that it works, right? So I get every letter separately, and after a space, right, if the letter is space, then it prints space found, space found. And now if you look at that, what are the initials? The initials are the letters that immediately follow the space. If you look after, except for the first one, which we have already dealt with. So after space found, I have the F. After space found, I have the K. So I just want the letter that follows a space, and then I'm done, right? So how do I get the letter that follows the space? First, I need to count my letters, because you know that I can access elements of a string with a numerical variable, with an index. I can say, we already did this, right? Name 0 is the first letter. Name 1 is the second letter. So the letter after the space also has a number, but in order to find which number this is, I need to know where the space is. And so I need to keep counting. And there are better ways of doing this in Python, right? I'm not saying that this program is optimal. It is certainly not. There are much better ways, but we don't know them. I want to show you that even with what we know now, we can, in principle, solve all these problems. And we can make a working program without learning anything else. So here is our program now after this change. Input, enter a name, initials name 0. Then we put the counter at 0. We create a new variable counter that counts where we are in this loop. And then for letter in name, print, and then I print an F string, letter. Letter is at position counter, just to show me that it does it correctly. It goes through the string. If letter is space, space found, and then we have to increment the counter. So in every iteration of this loop, we need to count the counter variable up, so that the first time it goes through, the counter is 0, the next time it's 1, and so on. So don't forget to increment it, else we will be stuck with the counter being at 0. So let me try this to execute this. I'm in here already, so I enter a name, John F. Kennedy. And now look what happens here. I have all the letters in their respective positions, right? So my counter is counting up, and every time it finds a space, it tells me space found. And so now you see when the space is found and my last counter is at position 4, the letter F will be at position 5. When the space is found and my last counter is at position 7, the K will be at position 8. So I just need to take the letter at position counter plus 1, and this will be my next initial. And this is what I do here. We go again through, we put the initials at name 0, counter at 0, and now I have removed all these prints, all this testing output, we don't need it anymore. If letter is space, then the initials, this is the important line, are the previous initials, right? I just want to add to the initials. The user might have one initial letter if he's just Billy, or he might have, 3 like John F. K., or he might have much more, right? Some languages have names, some cultures have names that have, lots of components, Arabic names or something. You might have lots of components, and then you don't know how many initials you would have, right? So we shouldn't limit people to 1 or 2 or 3 initials. So we just go through, and how many initials they are, we just keep adding them to the initials string. So after every space, whatever comes there, we enter it. And so this is what happens here. We add to the initials the previous initials plus name counter plus 1. And after that, we increment the counter, and finally we print our result. Let me do this. Enter a name. We continue with our John F. Kennedy. This is a good name because it has, 3 initials. The name is John F. Kennedy, and the initials are JFK. So, success. We are finished. This gives you an idea of how to think in steps about approaching a solution, and also how you develop a program. It's not really like the program is created in your mind in one moment and then you just type it out in a flash of inspiration. It is an iterative process where you start with something simple. You start with just enter a string. Now I have my string. Now I want to see how can I get the letters out of the string. You make a for loop. You try the for loop. You print every letter. Then you say, okay, I want to find the spaces. You try to find the spaces. You execute it again. You see if you did it correctly. Don't write a whole program and then execute it, because what will happen is if you have a mistake in there, first you might have multiple mistakes and make it difficult to find everyone. Then if you have a mistake in the principle of your program, then perhaps the rest of your program is useless. You just spend all this time making it without it working. So you have to throw it away and start again. You just waste the time. So go step by step, and in every step, you try to see, does it work? Verify that until now your program does what you want by making these test outputs, put prints everywhere, see what they say. And if the program is doing what you want, then continue with the next step in your thought process, add more things to it. Okay, so this now works. But now, of course, there are possibilities for errors here. So you also need at the end to make a pass where you look at common mistakes that a user could make. Because users, of course, they make mistakes. They don't always enter what we want. And you have to anticipate at least the most common ones to have a program that's not only correct, but also robust, right? That is not easy to make crash. So let's try. And there is a way how I can make this crash very easily. And if you look at the code, of course, you understand how. I just don't enter a name. And what happens is I get an index error because I'm trying here initials name 0 to access name 0, the first character of name. But now I didn't enter a name, right? And so there is no name 0. And I get an index error down here. String index is out of range. So this is not good, right? I need to do something to catch this case. How do I do that? I just put an if in there. If the name is empty, then I add something to the name. It does not matter what, right? Something, anything, just to catch that. And in order to not freak out the user, I don't enter a letter or a name, because then the user will say I never entered that. I enter something that lets the user see that this was supposed to be empty, but we added something. So in this case, I just add a dash character. And so if I run this now, enter a name, and I don't say anything, it says the name is dash and the initials are dash. So it's okay. It solves the problem. It signals to the user that the things are working as they should, and the user cannot crash the program anymore in this way. But there's another way to crash it. If you look at it again, what other assumption do we make? We assume that after every space there will be an initial. Now this will be the case except if the space is the last character in our name. So if the user enters Andy and then a space, then my program will crash also, because it will detect the space and try to get the character after the space, but this does not exist because the space is the last character. So what can we do about this? We can just cut off the last character of the string if that last character is a space. And we know how to do this because we've talked about slicing of lists earlier. So look at this here, what I am doing. If name -1, and you remember negative indices count from the end of the string, so -1 is the last character of the string. If the last character of the string is a space, then name should be assigned the value of name from 0 to -1, which means all characters from the first 0 until -1, but it ends there, so it ends at -1, so it does not take the last character. And in this way, we take all but the last character, so the space is cut off because the last character we know is a space. And now let me try this again. I run this program here, and now I enter ND space, and now it works because it cut off the space. It still won't work now if I give it multiple spaces because we cut off only one. So let me show you. If I say Andy and then a few spaces, it will still crash because it will only remove one. So this is a homework. Perhaps you can try to do it yourself. And there is actually a very nice Python function that does this much easier. It's called strip. It strips the spaces off a string at the beginning and at the end and solves this problem. So use the strip method of the string object in order to make your program more robust. Take this as a homework, find out how it works, make this, and I hope you had fun. I hope you understood how this works. I would encourage you to really go through this program again until you have really understood it, not only the program itself, but the thinking process, because this is the process how you think about software development. You make little changes, always you test the change, then you do the next thing until you have your desired result. Thank you and see you next time. Bye-bye.